Right, so we all know things aren't going particularly well at Manchester United at the moment. So we thought, why stop at just looking and going, this ain't great? Why not get someone in who knows exactly what is going on behind the scenes? We've got Maram, who is a data visualizationer. What's the term for that?
Just call me an analyst. I think that would be fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I basically use data visualization to help player and team development.
Yeah.
So that's what I do.
And you've worked with teams in the top 5 leagues and
Yeah, I
players,
have.
so you know what you're talking about. You may have seen her on Twitter, Maram90 on there. Check her out if you haven't already. But we're going to be basically looking at the tactics of Manchester United and what is going wrong, why we're seeing these bad results, why it's looking as though anyone could get sacked at any moment, who knows what's going on. Basically, things aren't right, and we're going to find out why. That's about right, isn't it?
Yep. Let's
Fantastic.
do it.
Right, so Maram, you create visualizations of the data that happens in football games, and you make these yourself, don't you? You program them, you get the data, you sort of put it all through a little system. For a simpleton like me, you get the data, put it through a machine that you made, and then it comes out the other side looking all nice.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, we're going to analyse, we're going to start from last season, we're going to work our way through to this season, what is happening at Manchester United, why it seemed good last year, but why there are sort of causes for concern even when things were looking a little bit better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very pessimistic, but we'll certainly get through it. Right, let's get to our first graphic then. And this is one where we're looking at basically how United build up their play. So what are we seeing here?
Okay, so let me just explain the technical details so we can get that out of the way.
Yeah.
So basically, we're just looking at our first 6 pass and build up. So how do we pass in our own half and when we're trying to progress the ball? So this is when United are in possession.
Yeah.
And what I did was I broke them into 6 passes just to see how common or what's the most common type of first pass, second pass, and etc.
Okay, and now this is from all of the Premier League games from last season. For anyone who can't see or can't read it, the light blue is the first most common pass, correct? The pink is the second most common pass, and the purple is the third most common pass of all of these passes.
Exactly, yeah. So when you begin to look at the first pass, you can actually notice that United's goalkeeper is not really involved, and that's not something that's really common. I've done these for Manchester City, for Liverpool, and when you actually look at it, the goalkeeper is really heavily involved from the first to second pass.
Really?
Yeah. With United, David De Gea is not involved at all, and I think that's something that should be recognised. No matter how good of a shot stopper he might be, he's still a deficiency in a sense that he's not going to be involved whatsoever on the ball. Right. So it's kind of like you're a man down immediately. And the common trend that you notice from all the way the first to 6 passes that United are not getting to the penalty box at all.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, well, we've done 6 passes here, but up until about here somewhere, they're pretty much all in our half.
Yeah, they're stagnating.
Right.
They struggle, and especially you can notice that there's no central penetration.
Yeah.
That happens often when Bruno tries to drop deeper, and he tries to do it all himself, basically. So then there's no one left in the centre anymore. Right. So these are problems we've seen in terms of United just trying to get into the opposition half since last season.
So let me ask you a couple of questions then, because I'm looking at this and I'm seeing, yes, it's a lot of left-hand side. You know, that light green is all on the left-hand side. But other teams then, you look at City, talk about Liverpool, do they have more of a central presence? Because we don't really there.
Yeah.
There's this one here that's kind of central. This is here, but again, that's really deep. We have no central presence in the opposition half in the first 6 passes. Do other teams have more of that than us?
Definitely, because when you even notice that areas that we're central in, it's a lot of sideways passing between the double pivot.
Yeah, you can see this one here. It's like okay.
So no, a lot of bigger clubs. It doesn't even have to be your Manchester Cities or your Liverpools. Even when you look at the likes of, for example, Brentford, they have central dominance all the way up from the third pass. A team like Leeds actually reaches the opposition half and even the penalty box at the third pass.
Really? That's they're just so direct, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right.
So you can actually then begin to contextualise how slow United are in build-up, now ineffective they are. And that's been, even when they were good last season, we finished second.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these issues have been there for a while.
Right.
I think we need to emphasise that.
Yeah, very much so. Another thing that looks worth mentioning to me is, on this left-hand side, you see the slightly longer passes, but the right-hand side, there's a lot more long passes there. Is that because, why is that? We're stretching out on the right-hand side, we're trying to go long. Is it because we don't trust the right-hand side players to play short, intricate passing, so they're having to just boot it down the line? What's this about?
I think you should start all the way from the back line. When you have a player like Maguire, his primal tendency is just to pass to Luke Shaw, and then United are going to build up from there.
Right.
When you have a player like Wan-Bissaka, he's not particularly good on the ball, or a player that's particularly good in terms of progressing it all the way to the final third.
Okay.
So that's what all the more increases United's dependency on the left, because they don't have the adequate players yet. Especially last season, we didn't even have a proper right winger yet.
Yeah.
So just ignore the right, go through the left. That was basically the strategy.
It's a slight worry, isn't it? I mean, you don't want to see this. I mean, what is it? 4 of the 6 of the most common passes are on the left-hand side there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's slight concern. Hopefully this season, I mean, we were hoping we'd go into it and we'd see more balance. We'd see maybe some faster playing of the ball as well. There was rumours of a 4-3-3, which, again, would hopefully increase this central dominance.
Yeah.
We haven't really seen the 4-3-3. Because of Rashford's injury, we haven't seen Sancho on the right-hand side particularly much at all. So it's not really gone to plan so far, has it?
No, I would not say that at all, yeah.
Right, so that's the overall patterns for last season in build-up through the passes when we have the ball. Let's look at this season. Let's look at specifics. Leicester City at the weekend. Let's have a little look, because this, you wanted to talk, move us through the team, how we're sort of building up what we're doing in possession. David De Gea is the first one you wanted to look at.
Yeah, exactly.
And you see this is a sort of passing network for the whole game, isn't it?
Yeah.
And obviously here we've got David De Gea highlighted.
Yeah.
Again, just for anyone who can't see or isn't aware, you see the little key here. The thick white line is a high exchange, which means that pass is made often, and you see the arrow in which the direction is made. The dashing line is a medium level pass, which is like this one here from Lindelof to Pogba, and then the low exchange is the dotted line here, which you see from De Gea to Harry Maguire. So let's start with De Gea. You mentioned him before. He doesn't offer too much in build-up. You see here, he's only got one outward line, one forward line, one pass that he makes.
Yeah.
It's very low exchange, so he doesn't do it very often, and it is only to Harry Maguire.
Yeah, exactly. So I think no one wants to talk about Leicester anymore, I'm pretty sure. But I think this game is really important because it showed all of our issues at once.
It was good, wasn't it, in that sense?
In that sense.
From an analytical perspective, I'm sure you were watching this going, oh, we're just doing everything wrong. All of the problems we have, let's just do them all at once.
Exactly, the pot overflowed, and you can see that with David De Gea, is that you're actually a man down and trying to build up. Right. Maguire and Lindelof don't have an outlet. Whenever they're under pressure by Leicester's press, they can't pass back.
Right.
They know that he's not particularly good on the ball or wants it, really. So, and he's not even an outlet in terms of long passes to try to find forwards running into their back line.
No.
So immediately United have one less option. So I think that's something concerning in terms of David De Gea that we need to keep in mind in the future, is that no matter, again, how good he's going to be in the shot stopping, we need to look at also his other qualities and how maybe his lack of involvement can be actually harming the club.
Right, so we've talked about the goalkeeper there, De Gea. One of the problems we have with, I think, all of our goalkeepers is they're not particularly confident on the ball. Let's move up to the centre-backs. We talked about Maguire, who I think, you know, this isn't meant to be a dig at any individual player here. I think he had one of the worst games, if not his worst game for Manchester United the other day.
Yeah.
Clearly not fit, clearly not comfortable on the ball. It started in the first minute when I think he was about here somewhere. The ball came to me, tried to take a touch and it went out for a throw, and I thought, we're in for a long day. Yeah? But what do you see between Maguire and Lindelof?
So usually Maguire and Lindelof have, or whatever partnership it is, has a strong connection. Yeah. I think we saw that in terms of Leicester. They didn't. It's just particularly how they struggled against the press and how they struggled just to build out of the back. And the fact that their fullbacks were so narrow that they didn't even have any outlets to either the channels or the central areas in terms of the double pivot.
Yeah.
So I think
you mentioned the fullbacks there, sorry, but we should be able to put a graphic over the top of this showing another game for United where generally we're wider than this. We're very narrow for some reason.
Yeah, this kind of gives us an idea that this was coaching instruction, given that the both flanks were unusually narrow, especially when we were used to seeing Luke Shaw really high and wide. Yeah. So that was kind of peculiar in a sense. But in terms of, again, going back to the partnership, we really highly depend on Harry Maguire, and I think that gives us a bigger problem to how this team is sort of built around. Yeah, the structure is supposed to bring out an individual strengths, not depend on it. Right. So when Harry Maguire is out, we struggle, and I think that's why we kind of felt the pressure to just quickly rush him back in.
So we didn't want to go with Bailly because we can't rely on Bailly on the ball.
Yeah.
You can't say, I don't know what to do, just give it Maguire.
Yeah.
You can't do that with Bailly. So we're just like, a 50% Maguire is theoretically better than a 100% bye, but obviously that didn't work out against Leicester, did it?
And it shouldn't be that way. We should be more comfortable rotating. But that's been a common theme under Ole's United, is that we kind of not very keen on rotating when we should be. So
yeah, and you mentioned it before as well, as we move on to the midfield as well, that double pivot there. One of the reasons you were saying to me before that we do rely on Maguire so much is because there doesn't seem to be the structure with these two players. They drift away, they don't come short, they don't make space themselves, they're too close to each other. Talk to me about this double pivot, which was, Pogba and Matic against Leicester.
I think what's important to mention is that every double pivot at United is dysfunctional at best. So
I'm smiling, but it's sort of a smile of, I don't even know. I just feel helpless almost,
Yeah,
Go on.
because they don't have the proper defensive midfielder that they need. Defensive midfielder that's good on the ball, that can screen the back line. They don't have that player yet. Matic is too old, Pogba's too attacking, and we've heard enough about McFred, I feel. So no matter who you're going to place on there, it's never going to be the full perfect fit.
Right.
That's why we kind of keep saying McFred is just the lesser of two evils, so to speak.
It works better than any other option, even though it doesn't work well.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think what he was trying to do in terms of placing Matic and Pogba is just try to aid our back line in terms of moving the ball quickly and moving the ball better. But what ended up happening, actually, is that they were too narrow, and that's a lack of positional discipline or instruction given by the coach to the players. Okay. So they were really inaccessible a lot of the time to the back line, which kind of rendered them useless.
So if they're too narrow, that makes the Leicester press much easier.
Exactly.
Because basically one player can cover almost two players there.
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot easier for us to be pressed, which we saw in the game where it felt like, Maguire and Lindelof half the time didn't have a pass. And that's because these two are too narrow, so Leicester's press can just overwhelm them so easily.
Exactly, yeah. Right. And that we're just seeing the deficiencies in possession, because again, this is a passing network, which is in possession. But this United side has a lot more problems out of possession as well.
Yeah, the press was horrendous, wasn't it?
Was there a press?
Well, yeah, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, I think it was Brendan Rodgers who was talking about, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, basically saying they weren't really pressing properly, so we could just pass through them. That's damning to hear that, isn't it?
I have a lot to say about that, actually. I think we were fine within the first 15 minutes.
Right.
I think we were settling on the idea of not pressing, and that was kind of fine.
Yeah.
But then you had the likes of Bruno just breaking all these, sprinting at people, and that kind of broke everything apart.
What it felt like, it was Bruno was running past Ronaldo to press, and then Pogba's going, oh no, Bruno's leaving a big gap there. Let me fill that gap that Bruno's leaving. And then Matic going, hang on a sec, you've all just left me. It's 3-on-1 now. Or Maddison's there, and they've got Vardy behind me. They've got who else? Iheanacho there. So it felt as though Bruno pressed just like a headless chicken almost, and then Pogba was like, do I stay? Do I go? And then all of a sudden, 3 passes later, they're in our 18-yard box. Yeah,
pressing is a team game, and we've seen kind of that this United side just doesn't want to press in the sense that Ole has never been a high pressing side. He never wanted or emphasized that, at least. So it's always been the mid block that we've seen last season.
Yeah.
So
in itself, do you think that's a problem? I know a lot of modern
teams
that's not
necessarily a
press.
problem. That's not necessarily a problem. Yes, I think high pressing is always best, but maybe he doesn't have the personnel to do that yet. Right. And I certainly think that he doesn't have right now, because with Ronaldo, he's a player that's never going to press.
No.
And I think we acknowledge that, but I think we're not doing enough to ease that in a sense. Yeah.
Do you think then that? I sort of came away from this game thinking one of two things has happened there. Either Ole's gone, this is how we press. We just send Bruno by himself. Pogba decides what he wants to do. Or the other option is they aren't listening to instructions at the moment.
I don't think.
What's going on?
In terms of pressing is a team unit. You can't do it by yourself.
And you see a lot of people on social media, and a lot of the criticism of Ole and the coaches is they're clueless. They don't know what they're doing. These are professional coaches with the highest level badges.
Yeah.
They know that Bruno pressing by himself, Pogba doing what he wants, isn't going to work.
Yeah.
They haven't told them to do that, have they? Surely.
No. Listen, this is the problem that's been recurring with Bruno by giving him a free roam role, that he tends to sometimes even drop deeper when he shouldn't be to try to progress the play, and he gets applauded for that. And okay, good enough, but when he actually tries to get the ball and we actually reach the opposition half, you don't have a player in the centre to pass to, because he's the player in the centre. Right. And he just went all the way to the own half.
To his own 18-yard box to get the ball back. Right.
Yeah, so I think that's been bit of an issue with
maybe
Bruno,
the coaching is relying a bit too much on sort of freedom and expression rather than...
Exactly. I think that's been a common theme with United again, is that it's not a bad thing to let brilliant players put them together and they will do brilliant things. That's not a bad thing. But when that doesn't work, they need to have a framework to depend on and rely on. And this United side currently doesn't.
Right, so let's move out to the wings and the wide areas then, because we're looking here again, Wan-Bissaka, Greenwood, Shaw and Sancho. You mentioned on that first graphic that we saw how United like to build up. 4 out of the 6 were on that left-hand side, and it shows itself here again. Look, you see Luke Shaw, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 high exchanges, and you see Wan-Bissaka, he's got 4 and then some weaker ones. Yeah. We're relying a heck of a lot on Luke Shaw on this left-hand side, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think everyone and his dog knows at this point that we rely too heavily on the left.
Yeah.
It's been a common theme with United under Ole for a while. This is not something new.
It feels like for United for years.
We haven't had a right winger.
Yeah, it seemed like we always would. It was Rashford or Martial, and that's it. And then on the other side, you've got Valencia, or maybe Sanchez gets pushed.
Yeah.
It felt like we've been left side dependent for half a decade now, more.
Exactly, and I thought Sancho would solve that, but maybe due to injuries, Ole felt pressure to put him on the left instead of the right, and I guess that's what happened. But in a sense, you can actually look, they're both too narrow when they should be high and wide, stretching that Leicester press. They played with the back 3. The best thing you can do is stretch them wide. Create those spaces for the runners to go into. Yeah, exactly. Create those spaces, but we didn't, and it kind of... That's why we struggled in terms of chance creation. Okay. We were not creating these spaces for each other, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, we're dependent on Luke Shaw, and I think everyone knows that by now. And maybe that's not a bad thing, because you know that he's going to do amazing stuff, but you also need to have another outlet when he's not on his day.
Right.
And I think you mentioned that sometime that he was a bit injured.
Yeah, well, he was saying that he's not trained much for England, he hadn't trained much for United. His whole left-hand side was wrapped up or injured or something, so I don't know exactly what's going on there, but he was basically talking about being somewhat injured for the last few weeks before the game, so you're not getting the best out of him, and yet we're still relying on him more than basically anyone in the team for build. I mean, Pogba's the only one who's even got close to the same amount of links and high exchanges as Luke Shaw has.
Exactly, yeah.
Right then, let's move forward to Ronaldo then. Huge talking point this season so far, huge talking point after the Leicester game. Some people saying we're not adapting to him playing there, some people saying you can't adapt to him playing there. He's, he distracts from the team. He's good in front of goal, but what else does he bring? You do see here that he's only really got one obvious passing lane, and that is back to Luke Shaw again. Everyone's passing to Luke Shaw, so there's no surprise there. But Ronaldo isn't a huge part of the build-up at this stage in his career. He doesn't come in. He doesn't want to give and go quite as much as he used to. What are you seeing from Cristiano Ronaldo here?
This is actually quite ironic, is that he doesn't have enough passing combinations, but he's a player that actually likes to get involved on the ball.
Right.
Yeah, he likes to see a lot of it, and I think that's a dynamic that United are not quite familiar with in terms of who they play as striker. Because not only does he get involved on the ball, he's not a player that's going to create from it. He's not going to dribble past 3-4 players. He's not the same player that we remember back in 2007. So he's a player that's going to eat up a lot of your possession, and it's taken away from creators, which means, again, United already struggle with chance creation. Right. Now they're going to struggle even more. And with Ronaldo, with a player like Ronaldo's stature, you can't drop him, can you?
Not really. I mean, we saw what happened when he did, and it was all over the papers. It was, Ronaldo's going to get him sacked, all these sorts of things coming out. It causes quite a scene, doesn't it? I mean, you could drop him, but we've seen what happens when you do. It's difficult.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's a bit of a... I think they underestimated the problem that he might cause in terms of the issues that integrating him would do to the balance of the side. So it's not really that balanced right now, is it?
No. So what do you think they're doing then? The coaches, Solskjaer, his team, they have access to all the data that we have. They have the cameras angles, they have this, they have that, they have data, they have tracking, they have fitness, they have everything.
Yeah.
These men are good coaches, generally speaking, even if they're not the best in the world. They have to respond to this, don't they?
Yeah.
Not just Ronaldo, but what we're seeing here, the over-reliance on Maguire, the over-reliance on Shaw, the fact that this double pivot isn't working almost no matter who's there.
Yeah.
Bruno's playing this free role. What it seems to me is, looking at what we've talked about today, all of these lines follow an ideology of give it to the best player and he'll do something.
Yes.
And this sort of individual brilliance thing I've always questioned, because I think you want players that are individually brilliant. That's what sets you apart from
Exactly,
mid-table teams.
yeah.
So I don't think it's a problem that you have individual brilliance. But when you go, well, Maguire's the best on the ball, so he has all of the ball as a centre-back. Well, Luke Shaw's the next best on the ball, so he has all of the ball on the left.
Yeah.
You know, it just follows this pattern of who's easiest to pass to, who can I just give the ball to and let them deal with it. That's not good, is it?
No, these players don't look like they have a proper framework in terms of how they look to attack. It's not like, I will get the ball, you make the run, and I will pass to you. It kind of really depends on the chemistry. And when you insert a player like Ronaldo that doesn't have quite the relationship that he does, maybe bar from Bruno, he doesn't quite have the relationship that he does with other players, they're going to struggle because they don't know they're not on the same wavelength, so to speak. Right. So when you play, it's fine to play good players, obviously, but you need to give them the structure to allow them to shine. So that's the idea of coaching. It's to bring out a player's strengths and hide his weaknesses. But this United side seems to exacerbate some of our weaknesses. So like looking at placing Pogba in the double pivot, that should never happen, ever. I don't want to ever see it again.
Yeah.
So these are some of the issues that are happening in terms of the coaching. It seriously needs to be looked at because this is a good crop of players and they should not be performing in the way that they should be. So the only answer here is what's the manager doing?
Right, thank you very much for joining us. That's going to be all today. We're going to be doing this again, hopefully, looking at United's games as we go forward. Hopefully we can see some progress.
Because, I hope so,
you know, if we don't, at some point things are going to change, aren't they? We all know that. None of us are oblivious or naive enough to think that we can keep losing games and nothing's going to change. So, you know, hopefully we can see some of these changes. Thank you very much for joining us at home. Make sure you check out Maram on social media, on Twitter. She's really good on there. Maram per 90. The link will be in the description. Again, thank you for coming down, sharing your expertise, sharing all your brilliant, isn't it? Right, thank you again for watching. If you like this video, make sure you like the video, and again, comment below what you think is going wrong at Manchester United currently, because things not all is happy at Manchester United at the moment.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.